I invite Justin, Allie, and Robert Rachado to come forward to light the chalice as we remain standing and join together in the recitation of our covenant. Enriched by our differences and joined together in our search for meaning, we covenant with ourselves and each other to seek truth in a spirit of love, to strive for justice, and to serve others with a joyful heart. Now, since you all brought your own sunshine into the sanctuary this morning, please take a moment to greet your neighbors. Good morning to everyone in the sanctuary and to those joining us on Zoom. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Delaware County. No matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter where you are welcome here today. My name is Ruth Hendry, and I'm serving as your worship associate this morning. If you are attending this service for the first time, we want to extend a special warm welcome to you. If you are viewing this service on Zoom, please remember that you can activate closed captioning if that is helpful for you. And if you'd like to talk with others after the service, there's a virtual coffee hour. Just stay logged in and you will be able to talk with others online. If you are attending worship in person, please join us in Fellowship Hall after the service. And today I am honored to welcome Reverend Sana Saeed as our guest minister this morning. Reverend Saeed is a member of the Congregational Life staff of the Central East region of the Unitarian Universalist Association. Previously, she was an intern minister for the UU Ministers Association and was president of the diverse revolutionary UU Multicultural Ministries, known by its acronym of DRUM. She's a graduate of the Harvard Divinity School and the George Mason University Jimmy and Rosalind Carter School for Peace and Conflict Resolution, which we certainly do need at this time. During the pandemic, she co-led with Paula Cole-Jones an online group for UU persons of color, which continues to this day. She lives with her partner and beloved dog, Rumi, in nearby Ardmore. Please remain seated and join in singing our centering song.
Each Sunday, we gather in community, bringing whatever joys and sorrows we have on our hearts that day. Now is a chance for us to share these in community by dropping a stone into a bowl of water. As we drop the stone, the ripples go through the bowl of water just like our joys and sorrows ripple through our community and are held together in love. At this time, all are invited to join the ritual. You can go down the side aisle and back to your seat through the center aisle. Those friends on Zoom are welcome to share their joys and sorrows in the chat. drop a final stone for the joys and sorrows of those on Zoom and those who are not with us this morning.
Good morning. Please join me in a moment of prayer or meditation, however you feel comfortable. You may close your eyes or find a spot to focus on, maybe the beautiful trees outside of the windows. Today I'm sharing a prayer by my colleague, Reverend Alex Klingenberg, which I have adapted for this service. Spirit of life, earth and sea and sky, place of deep longing in my heart, find your way from silence to voice. Hold us in sorrow and times of joy. Give me strength and courage to speak through my life, for I am a creature of the universe, small but infinite, a momentary body in the sea of life, and also the sea itself. I am a gathered bit of energy and one who gathers, a creation and a creator. Let me not hold too tightly to one form or lose the other, for we are not form but process, ever-changing, ever-renewing. Help us see that we are neither the beginning nor the end, but something perfectly natural and imperfectly divine. Amen. Please rise and body your spirit to join me in singing hymn 123, Spirit of Life.
At this time in our service, we ask for your financial support. Your support, the free and generous support of each member and friend of this community, is what fuels this community and its mission. Without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly and be a beacon in the world. You can text your donation to the number provided on the screen. You are welcome to drop a check in the boxes at the back of the sanctuary beside the doors. Thank you for your generosity.
Good morning. Is my mic working? Yeah, it sounds like it is. Cool. All right. Our time for all ages today is loosely based on one by Karen G. Johnson. And it's about covenant. So I'm going to talk about covenant. A covenant is an agreement that we make as a community, and it's an agreement we make about how we want to be when we're together. So here at UUCDC, we say a covenant every Sunday, right? We say, enriched by our differences and joined together in our search for meaning, we covenant with ourselves and each other, right? And that's a very aspirational covenant. The things we say in that covenant are ways that we really hope we can be. And, we try our best, right? And that's how it is with covenant. In our RE classes, at the beginning of every RE year, our classes and our youth make covenants together. And if you go downstairs, you'll see on the wall some of their covenants are displayed. And some of our classes, they review the covenant from time to time, which is important because a covenant is something that we build together. It's something that changes. Sometimes it grows, sometimes we add things, sometimes we take things out if they're no longer necessary. So it's important to look at covenant from time to time and see how it grows. Sometimes there's conflict, right? Sometimes there's conflict and we worry that the whole thing is going to come crashing down. But somehow, we're able to keep it together. Maybe we apologize, maybe we make amends, maybe we find ways to forgive. Sometimes, that wasn't supposed to happen. Come on, Jenga blocks. Sometimes, a piece that we thought was essential, a piece that we thought was at the very heart of our covenant or our community goes away. And we're not sure if the whole thing will hold together. Is this what breaks us? But somehow it stays. Sometimes something new and completely different comes along. And we have to decide, are we going to try to fit this into our covenant? Is this something we want to have? And you know what? Maybe we can make it work. Sometimes something comes and shakes the very foundation of our covenant. Something like, say, I don't know, a global pandemic, something like that. And we wonder, is it going to hold? And sometimes the whole thing comes crashing down. The covenant is broken. Now what do we do? What do we do? Children, kids, what do you do when you're building with blocks and your block tower falls down? Maybe it fell down because you bumped it. Maybe it fell down because some big meanie came and crashed it over. What do you do? M. Demarest. You try again? Is that what you said? That's a good answer. M. Stiegel, what were you going to say? Build it again. So I get a lot of votes for try again. Does anyone have anything else you might do other than try again? Yes. Michael? Robert? Try to build with something else. That's a good idea. So I'm hearing a lot of build it again, try it again. Sometimes, though, if our blocks fall down, might we feel sad? I might feel sad. If somebody knocked our blocks down, whether on purpose or by accident, I don't know, I might feel a little angry. Would you feel a little angry, maybe? Maybe I'd feel a little bit betrayed. But I like this idea of rebuilding. And the cool thing about rebuilding our blocks is that we can build them totally different. We can have new ideas. Maybe this time around we build them a little bit stronger. Maybe we just build them so that they, I don't know, are new. Have more features, have more things. Oh, let's get the banana in there. So, covenants are kind of like blocks. We build, we change, they get broken sometimes, and we rebuild. Thank you. you for listening to my story this morning. Roxy, you can ask me your question after, okay? Oh, there's a block. Thank you for letting me know. I'll clean it up later. I appreciate that. All right, it is time for our children to go to their religious education classes. Bob will play our sending song. He'll play it 3 times. We sing it together the first time. Second time, our teachers go to the lobby. And the third time, our children will go out. Thank you.
Our reading today is by Reverend Dr. Rebecca Ann Parker from her GA lecture, What They Dreamed Be Ours to Do, Lessons from the History of Covenant. 8 years ago, I moved to California to become president of Star King School for the Ministry. Truth be told, I was feeling proud of myself. Captain of my ship and master of my soul, I had valiantly charted my course to become first a cellist, then a minister, and now an educator. When I got to California, I discovered I had a passel of distant cousins I had never met. One of them, my cousin Eldon Ernest, was dean of the American Baptist Seminary at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. He proposed a family reunion, and so we got together. When we arrived in the driveway of Cousin Sally's home, I got the first introduction to my distant cousins by reading the bumper stickers on their cars. One said, "If you want peace, work for justice." Another, "Teachers do it with class." Another said, "Live music is best." And then there was one that said, "If you love Jesus, tithe." Inside, over Jell-O salad, homemade rolls, and tuna casserole, reminiscent of every church potluck I had ever attended, we said hello to one another. Here was Sally, a minister of religious education and graduate of Pacific School of Religion. And here was Mike, a professional French horn player and high school music teacher. And Eldon, a seminary dean, and David, a United Methodist parish minister. Every single one of my cousins was a musician or a minister or a teacher, and several were all three. Not only that, the ministers were all liberal, social activist types with an intellectual bent, and all the musicians were classical. Apparently, I had never made any choices at all. My life was given to me. I did not make myself, and this is how it is. We receive who we are before we choose who we will become. As human beings, our lives begin and never leave the soil of this earth that shapes us through blood, kinship, genes, culture, associations, social systems, networks of relationships, and extended communities. Even when we do not directly know the people whose lives are linked with ours, our lives unfold in relationship to theirs. And this is how it is with covenant as well. We are born into relationship before we shape relationships by our conscious attention. We inherit covenant before we create covenant. We do not make ourselves. We are given the gift of life, the gift of the earth that sustains life, and the gift of one another, here, now, and all the generations leading up to now. As the Brian Wren hymn sings it, we are not our own, earth forms us, human leaves on nature's growing vine, fruit of many generations, seeds of life divine. Covenant making must begin with the question, what have we been given? What is the covenant we are already in? We inherit covenant before we create covenant. I find the words of Reverend Dr. Parker gently staying with me these days as a reminder of things we inherit and the legacies we leave behind. She asked to reflect on what have we been given, what is the covenant we are already in. And we're reminded by the reading that we may have entered into agreements in our lives. As I reflect on the questions, another story comes to mind for me. I've shared this story before with you when I spoke to your congregation virtually in 2021. My family of 5 migrated to the US in 1998. 10 years later, after helping with a family business while going to high school and college, as did my brothers, we found out only 4 of us were given our citizenships. My middle brother was all of a sudden undocumented and given around 60 days to move out of the country. But he stayed here to finish his undergraduate education. Unfortunately, a few months later, he was pulled over while driving and arrested for being undocumented. When my brother was arrested as an undocumented person, he was transferred to a detention center in Youngstown, Ohio, many, many miles away from us. My family lived in fear for those 2 weeks because we weren't able to communicate with him and we weren't told what happened to him. Once we found out where he was placed, we began to plan regular road trips to Youngstown, going back and forth between Virginia Beach and Washington, D.C., where I had lived. One part of that story I didn't share with you last time, I consider a powerful spiritual lesson. On one of our planned trips, my parents and I entered the detention center, and the correctional guards who would normally let my mom in wearing open-toed shoes had changed their policies without notification, so she wasn't allowed to go in wearing sandals. On that day, my panicked mother got into a car and immediately drove out of the detention center. She needed closed-toed shoes. But there were no stores to be found. She decided to stop at a gas station where she saw a bunch of people sitting in front of the entrance while I stayed in the car. She explained the situation, and the people began to help by Googling where she could buy shoes. But all of a sudden, joining the attempts of others, this tall black woman stood up, looked down at her shoes, and in a prophetic spirit took them off. She nudged them over to my mom. My mom took her shoes off and nudged them over to her. Mom then walked back to the car in the shoes of this stranger, half a size too big for her, held onto the steering wheel with trembling hands, and drove back to the detention center to be let in. Again, reflecting on Reverend Parker's words, we inherit covenant before we create covenant. I can't help but think this stranger we met in Ohio moved into action, beholding an unspoken covenant that I only hope all of us could live up to when someone in need approaches us. This stranger didn't know our politics. She didn't know what religion we practiced or if we were atheists. She didn't ask for anything in return. She simply acted on a covenant she inherited and invited us into it. A covenant that was full of grace, trust, and understanding. A covenant that held our fears, our brokenness, our tears, and our hopelessness. A covenant recognizing our interconnectedness and our inherent worth and dignity. A covenant that was grounded in transformational love. Who wouldn't want to exist in a world where such a covenant binds us all? This was one of the many covenants I have inherited in my life before creating covenants with new communities and people I've met since. As you reflect on this story, please join me for a moment of reflection with a video slideshow. conversation around covenant making can be playful, tense, messy, joyful, vulnerable, complicated, all of those things, and all of those things are normal. But I find people get stuck on making it perfect, or creating a covenant where people have to live up to this ideal of perfectionism. And that's not what this is all about. It's not about wordsmithing. It's about the deeper promise you are committing to hold yourselves to when things get hard. It's about moving past shame and fear and being vulnerable, like offering to switch shoes with a stranger in need or asking for help in the first place. We're not perfect people. We all have scars we carry. But we have joys too, and intersecting with that joy can be sorrow, fear, shame, and brokenness. A covenant needs to hold all of that complexity, the complexity we bring as humans into this space. When I think about the ways we hold ourselves accountable to a covenant, I think about kintsugi. I learned kintsugi and the practice of wabi-sabi when I lived in Tokyo, Japan for 2 years, and the process often made me think of the ways we deal with our brokenness in life and the ways we mend the mistakes we make. In the prior slideshow, you saw pictures of a broken chalice that was repaired. That chalice is right here. During the pandemic, I began to practice kintsugi. That chalice was one I ordered online, and it arrived broken in several pieces. I decided to use kintsugi as a meditative practice to reflect on the ways we heal our wounds and renew our promises. As you read in the slideshow, kintsugi is a Japanese practice of repairing broken pottery in which cracks are filled with gold paint, highlighting the shapes of the cracks with the valuable material. The flowing shape of the flaws adds to the beauty of the piece. The technique was developed accidentally when 15th century shogun Ashikaga Yoshimasa broke his favorite tea bowl. He sent it to China to be repaired and was disappointed it came back stapled together. Andrea Fontanavi tells us local craftsmen came up with a solution. They filled the cracks with a golden lacquer, making the bowl more unique and valuable. The repair elevated the fallen bowl back to its place as Shogun's favorite and prompted a whole new art form. This method transforms the artifact into something new, making it more rare, beautiful, and storied than the original. Another author, Laura Casely, writes in her article, "Broken plates get a new meaning with kintsugi, the art of finding beauty in flaws." That behind kintsugi is a spiritual philosophy, wabi-sabi, or the embracement of imperfection. A much-used, well-worn object, for example, is considered beautiful for its history and for how it's been useful. The cracks signify an event in the life of this bowl, the way a scar or a laugh line might signify an event in a person's life. The cracks in a dish are considered something to celebrate, not something to hide. It reminds us that things we think are flaws, like scars, blemishes, wrinkles, or other signs of our own wear and tear, are actually signs of our unique growth and stories. From kintsugi, I learned we should all enter into co-creating covenants humbly, knowing we will make mistakes and we will break promises. Think of covenants like a broken chalice, and think of the work of repairing covenant as gluing the pieces back together using intentional practice, knowing you have to hold still for some time until the pieces stick together and can hold themselves up without support. That's what it's like into entering a conversation after we make a mistake and break a promise. leaning into that difficult conversation, moving past the shame and fear that may be hindering us, and perhaps having someone there to help us enter back into right relationship. We enter into conversation acknowledging the ways we broke the promise and hope to mend the relationship until it is able to hold itself back together again. After some time, when the glue dries, we paint the cracks of the once broken promise in gold, symbolizing the ways we renewed our promises to each other and deepened relationship. As a result, our covenant becomes more rare, beautiful, and storied than the original. This is spiritual and restorative work. Valerie Brown writes in her book, Hope Leans Forward, Teachings from a Black Buddhist and Quaker, to be in community is an act of vulnerability, to risk being misunderstood for the sake of understanding. To be vulnerable is to be permeable, porous to life, to our body and feelings, to others. Rather than standing apart and distant, we allow ourselves to be affected, to be open, and to connect. Community asks that we risk breaking our heart open, that we risk speaking and trusting. Brown goes on to say how being in community means to also be vulnerable enough to practice repairing harm and mistakes. The heart of brokenness is not a weakness, but instead, that vulnerability is something essential in our communities. The chalice I repaired using kintsugi is right here, and I invite Ruth to help me light the candle it holds. Friends, may this flame represent the ways we enter into engaging our covenants by being vulnerable, taking risks. May we have the courage and willingness to commit to the alchemy and practice of accountability. May we welcome all our brokenness and our wholeness to the ways we engage. May we tenderly hold each other in complexity and allow the covenant that holds us all to make us resilient. May it be so. Please rise in body or spirit to join me in singing hymn 1017, Building a New Way. Please join me in extinguishing the chalice and saying the words in the order of service or on the screen. For those who come here seeking God, may God go with you. For those who come embracing life, may life return your affection. And for those who come to seek a path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step. Blessed be.